The use of AI continues to evolve at a rapid pace for L&D practitioners. The challenge is staying ahead of the curve to leverage all the tools have to offer.
And so I truly do believe that everybody should have their own personal learning plan when it comes to AI so that they can be part of the conversation as technology shifts and changes in their environment, and they understand what does that mean for our associates? What does that mean when it comes to solving problems and to addressing performance issues? Because not only does it change for the instructional designer, but it changes for the associate at the same time.
That's Josh Cavalier, an expert in the field of AI in learning and development. Josh joins DaVinci's Director Learning Experience, Jenny Fadulo, and me to talk about the transformative impact of artificial intelligence on instructional design and corporate learning. Next on Powered by Learning.
Powered by Learning is brought to you by DaVinci Interactive. DaVinci's approach to learning is grounded in 30 years of innovation and expertise. We use proven strategies and leading technology to develop solutions that empower learners to improve quality and boost performance. Learn more at davinci.com.
Josh, welcome.
Good to be here, Susan.
Hi, Josh. Good to see you.
Hey, Jenny.
Josh, first of all, start off by telling us a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So what's interesting is I've been in learning development for 30 years, but didn't start out that way. I have a degree in medical illustration, and I got started in that industry, but was exposed to multimedia very early in the early 90s. And I happened to get an opportunity to become an art director for an e-learning firm based here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the gentleman I work for, Dick Hanshaw, he is well known for performance consulting and working in that area. And so I got to understand instructional design, performance consulting, in addition to all of the things that were happening in regards to media, from CD-ROM to the internet to mobile. In 1999, I went ahead and formed my own company, Lodestone, became one of the top Adobe authorized training providers in the United States. In that capacity, I would go into L&D departments and spin them up on technology. So whether it be authoring tools, video editing tools, even LMS, LXP implementation, part of that conversation. So I'm an education technologist, and I have been my whole entire career. Most recently, about 5 weeks before COVID, I decided to jump back into corporate. So after 20 years getting back into a corporate role, I worked for American Tire Distributors as an individual contributor. So that was a little weird for me, being a leader and then being an individual contributor. But I really wanted to, one, give myself a break, kind of do a reset, and see exactly what was current state happening within organizations. And the short of it is that I was leading the charge of an analytics product, helping frontline sales with the implementation and the selling of that tool. Did a lot of big things around the brand, around ATD, and getting that information out there. We opened up a new building during COVID and supporting all of that. But AI shows up in November of 2022. I got my hands on ChatGPT a week after it was released. And within about 3 weeks, I knew in my heart that this was going to be a fence post moment, that this is going to be a radical shift in the way that technology shows up. And so I was all in, and posting by the end of January, beginning of February on LinkedIn, different thoughts and ideas about how large language models can be used around instructional design. And it took off. And so right towards the end of COVID, decided to go back out on my own. And that shows up as joshcavalier.ai. And I do a lot of consulting, workshops, webinars, all around the implementation of artificial intelligence within the L&D function.
What a great journey you've had. And then sounds like you're very well positioned to help share with our listeners about artificial intelligence and learning and development.
Yeah, I've been in a lot of different environments. I think that's a true blessing of my career is I have been in many Fortune 500 companies within the L&D, within the HR function, spinning up technology, understanding how difficult it could be. all the challenges that are there. But when there is the perfect environment, that culture of innovation, that there is this meeting of where technology can really accelerate and you can create these amazing learning experiences for our associates.
So, Josh, I know you quickly became the go-to expert regarding AI. We're super thrilled to have you on our Powered by Learning podcast today. So I know for us, we've been really intentional about maintaining the human element while integrating AI. From your perspective, what strategies have you found that are most effective for striking that balance, right? We want to use that technology. It can do so much for us, but how do we preserve the skills, the expertise that instructional designers have?
Right. Yeah. So I think a lot of this comes back to giving yourself agency. And what I mean by that is giving yourself a foundation in how the technology works. How does a large language model work? How does a diffusion model work when it comes to images or audio? And it's more than just content creation, because these models are evolving to start to solve problems or do deep thinking. And there is going to be this constant change in capabilities that are going to be rolling out over the next 2 or 3 years. And so what technology can do to assist an instructional designer is going to be redefined in pivotal moments. And the only way that you can navigate that is understanding how the technology works. How does it appear for you personally within your learning ecosystem? So within your company, but then but also for you personally. Right. And so I truly do believe that everybody should have their own personal learning plan when it comes to AI, so that they can be part of the conversation as technology shifts and changes in their environment, and they understand, what does that mean for our associates? What does that mean when it comes to solving problems and to addressing performance issues? Because not only does it change for the instructional designer, but it changes for the associate at the same time. That is a hard vector. That is extremely difficult. And the only way that you can track what is possible is understanding these base technologies of AI.
Gotcha. So we've seen how AI is going to help us, break the traditional learning boundaries. I know I've heard you say, AI is going to enable us to kind of get content out of boxes. Can you expand on some of the innovative approaches you're seeing and where we might be able to go with that? I'm super excited about this aspect of it, really laying out the learning so differently than what we're used to.
Sure. So let's just define what it means to have things in boxes. When I first got started in e-learning back in the 90s, I can remember working with a team member on getting our first course on an LMS. And what a headache that was to actually get the tracking and get the information back. And that was my first experience with having content in a box, right? And so there's these natural boundaries that are created when we have content that's in a platform or on a server, and then our associates need to access that content. Those are boxes that are formed.
Yep.
And what I see happening is the ability for one, through AI and generative AI, content to live where it needs to be, to meet the associate where they want to consume the content, whether it be on their mobile device, on their laptop, eyeglasses, Ray-Bans or whatever. But the issue around that is that if we do have the ability to leverage generative AI and to create content the way that the associate wants it, maybe they wanted a printed checklist, maybe they want a video with an avatar, whatever, right? Well, that still needs to be tracked, right? We still need to make sure that it's being consumed properly, that then, we're moving the needle in regards to performance issues or business problems. But I do see the ability for, one, personalization of content, have it live where it needs to live, outside of an LMS. It could be, on your server. It could be sitting somewhere else online, and trackable. Now, to that issue, there are new platforms being created. Specifically, one that I'm extremely interested in is this platform called XCL. It's by Build Capable, and the leader of that company is Sarah Mercier. And so what they have done is created a platform that's based on XAPI. And for those of you that are not familiar with XAPI, it really allows you to go ahead and track content outside of an LMS. It's called Experience API, Application Performance Interface. And so with XCL, depending upon the media type, it could go ahead and track things with video, with a PDF, whatever you have, and you get valuable information back. And so if I have some type of performance issue, I can then go ahead and create, using generative AI, personalized content to meet the associate where they're at, especially when it comes to accessibility, right? Or if somebody is on the spectrum and they learn a certain way, hey, no problem. We can go ahead and, create a video that you can watch at 2x speed because that's the way you like to listen to your videos, right? But all that now can be tracked, and we can get the analytics back that we need to see if we are moving the needle. Are we solving that problem, and are we getting a change in performance?
Yeah, that's so interesting. I know that was my next, thing I wanted to talk to you about was personalization. But it's so intriguing where this can go for sure. I know you mentioned one platform, and like many in our space, we're watching where this is going to go and evolve. I know when we spoke prior, you said, hey, I think there's going to be really a consolidation of some of these, platforms and, human capital platforms.
Right.
How do you see this kind of playing out, and what should those of us, that anyone listening and learning companies really be preparing for?
Get your crystal ball out, Josh.
Yeah, I got to get the lens out on this.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of moving parts to this, but one constant that is happening, at least the way that I see things happening in different areas of business, like sales, and I look at what's happening with Salesforce.com and Mark Benioff and what he's doing there with Agentforce, and getting many of the tasks or many of the functions of sales with agents. And so, if we look at the tasks that we do as instructional designers, those low risk, high reward tasks are going to be agent based. For instance, here's an interview with a subject matter expert or multiple subject matter experts on a potential performance issue out in the field. I want an agent to analyze this and give me some potential in regards to what is happening. And then what can we do as far as learning objectives or putting together an action map around that, right? So, these are things that we do day in and day out. Now, the question is, though, where are those agents going to live? How are they going to show up? Currently, there is velocity happening in the human capital management area. So if we look to SAP, we look to Oracle, we look to Workday, there is a lot of activity around agents within those platforms. And here, this is the sticky wicket. This is where the rub is going to happen. Within those platforms, we do a lot of onboarding activities. And so I believe there's going to be a downward stream to where it's going to bump into L&D specifically around onboarding. So we're going to have agents that are going to take someone that was just hired. You're going to have your onboarding training, and those agents are going to be working there, potentially talking to agents on an LMS or an LXP, right? So there could be the potential to have crosstalk between those, but I believe there's going to be some consolidation to where, from a reporting standpoint, these vendors that are human capital management vendors are going to gobble up or leverage their own internal LMS, LXP, and have agents across the spectrum. So whether it's creating a personalized learning path once somebody is onboarded, but being with that individual from a skill indexing standpoint, understanding what's happening with their roles as they change, especially with the backdrop of AI, right? That is going to be one of the most difficult things for for us in performance to handle, is when a role changes in increments based upon AI. Like, it's what's funny is, so many people are like, oh, well, one day, we're going to have tier 1 call center people, and the next they're gone. Like, I can't buy into that. Like, because I know technology fails. And so an example would be McDonald's. McDonald's 3 years ago, they hired IBM to help them automate their drive-through ordering system. So they go through this process, they pilot this thing out, they decide to roll it out in a couple locations, and it fails hard. And so there's all these issues with the AI, and someone's ordering 230 McNuggets, and they only wanted 2, and McDonald's scrapped it. Now, I think that's the way it's going to happen within our organizations. We have this kind of panacea that, agents and all these things are going to happen, but the reality is companies may try to use agents to do task level work. And so as a human, you may work with AI on a task that may need human in the loop, but then you realize this agent's not getting the job done. We need to go ahead and take back more of that work. Or this agent's absolutely amazing. I can just go ahead and let it do its thing and then come back a week later and take a look at the analytics around it, right? And so the human capital management system is going to keep track of those changes within the job or job function, so that if someone leaves the organization or a role gets eliminated and a new role is created, you can then judge what is the relationship between the human and the machine, so that when you're recruiting, and if someone has that experience of working with AI or working with a machine or a robot, oh, well, that's the candidate that we need. Oh, and by the way, when we hire you, your role may change because we're working on this platform that may introduce additional agents, but we already know how, what else you're going to do. It's this weird dance.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm saying all of that to where, if I had to play this out, I think it's advantageous for the human capital management system to include an LMS LXP part of it, and then also the skill indexing and the performance data and the personnel data all in one package.
Intriguing. You're blowing my mind here.
It blows my mind.
Right? Oh my gosh. Yeah. So let's switch gears. Let's talk about prompting. I know at DaVinci, we really, we put some effort into this, right? We talk about it. It's very deliberate. We've really refined our prompting techniques. As we look ahead, again, crystal ball, where do you see prompting capabilities heading next? And how might this further transform the instructional design role, job, workflows, all of it? Yeah.
So prompting is interesting because that is how we communicate with models, right? That is the models unto themselves. They're there, they exist, they've been trained, but you can't get anything out of the model until a prompt is sent to the model. And so that's critical, whether you create the prompt, or like if we look at OpenAI's DALL-E, which makes images, you can go ahead and create a prompt, but in the background, DALL-E refines your prompt to give you a better image. Right. So it's redoing the prompt for you without you even knowing it. And so prompting is critical. I think that is like a baseline skill. And the analogy I give is, back when the internet was taking off, you had a choice as a professional. Do I want to learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? Right. It's still used today to deliver web pages. And if you know JavaScript, well, my gosh, you can go ahead and do custom stuff in Storyline. Right? You can go ahead and expand the functionality. The same thing is happening today. Do you want to learn to prompt? Well, you could, if you want, and have that advantage of understanding the communication protocol between these models, or you can hold off. But again, I think you lose your agency there. All right. Now, let's talk about the progression of a prompt. So from a prompt, we can get to an agent, but there's definitely steps in between. And so like with a simple prompt and the example I give, before getting into AI, like 100%, I used to talk about educational video a lot. Like for 5 or 6 years, I go speak around educational video.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can go ahead and prompt and just say, hey, write me an educational video script as a 0-shot prompt, just as a simple request. Well, I mean, that can give you a script in any kind of format, not necessarily the best structure for an educational video.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can go ahead and write a well thought out prompt that uses learning science and what we know about structuring a video to have a very specific format that gains attention, that does reflection, that's emotional. This is a great format for an educational video, but I have to understand that to create the proper prompt.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep taking that forward. If I have an awesome prompt, one that just 99% of the time knocks out the best educational script possible, well, I can make that an automation at that point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can go ahead and put that into Zapier, make.com, so that when I get my, interviews from my SMEs back, I can rapidly push it forward to an action map that may show, hey, we need a video about
Mm-hmm.
this. And it creates the video script
Mm-hmm.
from those interviews automatically. And if that works, if that workflow works, why not make it an agent? But at its core, that prompt still sits inside of an agent. So the agent, its sole duty may be to create a video script, but at its
Mm-hmm.
heart sits the prompt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this progression of how it shows up, but we never leave prompting. And I believe that's the reason why, and I can't emphasize this enough, that as a professional, you should learn how to prompt. Like it really should be one of your core understandings, because that's how we communicate with AI.
Yep. Agreed.
Do you have any tips, Josh? I mean, obviously, as we all learn these tools, there are days where I think, gosh, that was a good prompt you put in there, and that was better than the last one. But is there anything more official you would recommend that people do other than just learning by doing?
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of different courses that you could take that are out there. I mean, I have some. There are free ones that are online that many of the large companies have put out there, like IBM and Microsoft. They're out there. There's a lot of free resources out on YouTube. Pick what works for you,
Mm-hmm.
but do something. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
again, your
Right.
learning plan for your personal learning plan of 2025, give yourself agency, learn the fundamentals of prompting. And I like to call it prompt design, not prompt engineering. I think engineering to me is a little exclusive as opposed to inclusive. And so I like to use prompt design more so. Get out there and give yourself some base knowledge, base information, how to prompt.
Mm-hmm. Good advice.
Yeah. So I know we're particularly interested in, and I think you mentioned this a little bit, how AI driven content adapts to the learner's emotional states and stress levels. Can you share your insights on emotional intelligence aspect? How might this reshape our approach, being able to capture that?
Right. So how do we capture it? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that first. I think one of the big changes that's going to happen in the way that we do our work is the ability for AI to work in multiple modes, or what we call multimodal. And so currently there's a lot of talk or a lot of experiences around text, but that is radically going to change in so much that we're going to have audio-based conversations with AI. We're going to have video-based conversations with AI, and it's bi-directional. And so tapping into our tangential or related field of marketing, because I do believe there's a relationship between marketing and learning, those professionals over there have been tracking biodata for decades, right? The emotional response to an ad or anything like that. Well, if we leverage AI and the AI understands the inflection of somebody's voice, knowing that they're under stress, the coach or the tutor may say, you know what, now may not be the right time for this lesson. Why don't you go ahead and take a break and come back in a half hour and let's do this at this time. And so whether your webcam is on, your microphone is open, we are going to get to a point where the AI understands, again, hopefully it's under a secure environment, what is happening to you, whether you're wearing an Oura ring, getting biometric data with your heart rate. It is, it's funny. When I was doing a lot of the talks around video, there was one scientific study that I brought up, and it was based out of Israel. And the study was around judges and how the judges would go ahead and determine the outcome of cases. And it ended up that prior to lunch, when their glucose levels would drop, they had like a lot of negative judgments. And then after lunch, after they ate, they had more positive judgments. And so there's this whole thing about your glucose levels. It's almost like, when we're at a presentation and we tap out, like you could only like take in so much. Well, AI is going to understand that about you physically and determine whether you are in the right, moment. Or like if we go to Gagne's 9 levels of instruction, the first one is gain attention. The AI may say, wait a second, you're not even paying attention to what I'm telling you here. So are you ready for this lesson? It's going to be phenomenal. I don't know how it shows up. I mean, typically, vendors need to latch on to these capabilities and incorporate it into products. But the opportunity to take advantage of the biodata of the individual learner and understand their state and then aligning it to when the proper time is for learning is going to be phenomenal.
Josh, when you look at the companies that you work with, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that they face when they're looking at how to implement AI?
So continuity of leaders, continuity of technology is going to be one of the barriers that some of these companies are going to face when implementing AI. Like it's the thing that we don't want to talk about, but it's the reality. Like leaders come and go, people come and go. New leaders come in. They don't want to use someone else's technology idea. They want to use their own ideas, their own platforms. They have, relationships they built with vendors, and they want to use their vendor. That's very much the human aspect of all this AI stuff. Right?
Yep. So for our listeners already working with AI, like we are, I know you gave us one or two, emerging resources or tools, but what else? What are the top ones that we should be exploring to stay ahead of the developments?
For me, it's always going back to the foundation models, right? So just working with, like if you're an open AI, if you're using ChatGPT, have you created a custom GPT that does an automation or does a task? Like, are you working within there? Have you used Canvas to actually go ahead and work with the document? Same thing with Anthropic Claude. Have you used an artifact in there to do work? Have you trained it on your voice or the way that you want the AI to respond? Same thing with Gemini. Man, I have been in Google Labs working with the vision technology like crazy because I realize that's going to be a huge change or a function that's going to change the way that we do things. But again, I play within the core foundation models because it's a tell. Like it shows me what the possibilities are, and it gives me a lot of insight into like the way that we interact with these systems. And that would be my recommendation. And you can just pick one. Like you don't have, because they leapfrog each other. It's kind of funny. Like even though
it's like streaming channels on TV. They are all connected anymore. So.
Right, exactly. So like I just say, especially from a cost standpoint, or depending upon like the way AI shows up in your organization, just pick one platform, but go deep into that platform and understand what is possible. Understand what's happening with the advanced models from a problem solving, math, because the new O3 model from OpenAI, they just released it right before the holidays. It's beating out PhD level researchers. okay, that's never happened before.
Right.
How does that show up for us? That kind of thing. So I think you have to just be curious. You just have to maintain this level of curiosity about what is possible. Again, it may not show up for you professionally for a year or two, but you understand what's possible.
Mm-hmm. And you could even drive those possibilities too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
great advice, Josh. And a good reminder for all of us to never stop learning, because there's something new around every corner. That's for sure.
For sure.
Especially these days.
Well, thanks for taking the time to share your insights with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure.
I loved Josh's enthusiasm for how AI is transforming instructional design and the importance of keeping human touch. What did you think, Jenny?
Agreed. His insights into AI's role in reshaping learning, from personalized content to prompting to emotional intelligence, really highlight exciting possibilities. And at DaVinci, I know we're passionate about using these innovations to create meaningful human-centered learning solutions. So I hope our listeners feel curious and inspired to explore how these advancements can really elevate their work.
Absolutely. And I want to come up with that game plan that he recommended for my own personal learning. I hope you do too.
Agreed.
Yeah. Thanks, Jenny. And special thanks to our guest, Josh Cavalier. If you have an idea for a topic or a guest, please reach out to us at poweredbylearning@davinci.com. And don't forget, you can subscribe to Powered by Learning wherever you listen to your podcasts.